Venezuela crushed by an earthquake, and at this hour, 200 people are estimated dead, but that number will grow. Nearly 1,000 people are injured and thousands are missing, and it was not just one earthquake, but two earthquakes, 39 seconds apart. We're going to have more on that in just a moment. And talk about a U-turn from the Senate. First, the Senate snubbed the president and voted to block his power to resume war against Iran. And then, after a lunch behind closed doors, something happened. More on that later this hour. And what do you think it's like to be defrauded? I bet you don't like it. And the Trump administration is sick of it, too. The people committing Medicaid fraud better look out. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz joins me later in the hour. And billionaire Bill Gates testified behind closed doors about his pal Jeffrey Epstein. What did Gates say? Was he really blackmailed? Later this hour, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer joins me. I'm Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. Terrible news out of Venezuela. The number now dead is about 200, but expect that number to climb as people dig through the crushed buildings. Nearly 1,000 people are injured, many seriously, and thousands are missing. This after two powerful earthquakes, 39 seconds apart, slammed northern Venezuela. Right now, Venezuelans' rescue teams are trying to get to victims who may still be alive. Here's what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said.
We're already deploying search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles. There'll be some others we'll add. That's their most immediate need right now is search and rescue efforts. They have a much of collapsed buildings, and so they'll need a lot of help in terms of digging through that. The airport there is badly damaged, so we'll have to rely on the Department of War to deploy assets there. So we have an awful whole of government response. It'll be big, it'll be fast, and it'll be effective. And of course, obviously, we're in touch through our embassy on the ground where I believe we have almost full accountability of all of our personnel there, and of course, Americans are safe. I know the President's made a full commitment to being supportive of Venezuela.
This is Venezuela's annual inflation rate hits 611%. Earlier, I spoke with Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado. It's very nice to see you again. Not on good circumstances. Terrible what's going on in Venezuela.
Thank you very much, Greta. This is a really catastrophic situation. As we speak, tens of thousands of families are looking for their loved ones. Many buildings just fell down completely in different cities, not only Caracas, but other areas surrounding the central part of Venezuela. This is the largest tragedy we've ever had. In less than a minute, two very strong earthquakes hit our country. And we fear at the end, the result is going to be devastating in terms of the life lost.
Well, I've been to a lot of earthquakes and went to one in Haiti, and it appears the same way this one is that the infrastructure is so weak, is that it pancakes. There's nothing to sort of hold it. It's just like it just drops down. Everything's crushed in there.
But it's not only the lack of maintenance of many of the infrastructure. For instance, the airport is out of use right now, but also the lack of emergency response capacities on behalf of the regime to react. So there are areas that are currently not being taken care of. A lot of people are trapped under rubble. And this is a moment in which we desperately need international aid.
Well, you mentioned international aid, but Samaritan's Purse. I talked to Reverend Franklin Graham today, and they're going to send a lot of aid over there. They're already, moving. The United States is already getting visas. I mean, the State Department, so they're moving fast. But in order to get aid, and you've got to be able to land an airplane on a runway. So if the runways are either damaged or if they're overcrowded with planes coming in to deliver supplies, I mean that's another further problem. And also the capacities to distribute around the country. Because as I said, the resources on behalf of the regime for search and rescue and take care of those that are hurt is very, very limited. I mean, the Venezuelan institutions are very weak. So that's why we not only need international support, and we're very grateful to the United States and firsthand because it's already on the way, a lot of support, but also to many other countries
not only Latin American countries, but also European countries that have immediately sent support to Venezuela. It's on the way. But I also have to say, which is remarkable, is the way the Venezuelan people have reacted with resilience, solidarity, organization. I'm talking about tens of thousands of volunteers that are currently working, getting food and medicines from donations. We have collecting sites all over the states and send it to the critical areas. The way people are helping each other, and even information, because this is one of the critical things that you value when you have an emergency such as this. People, children looking for their moms, mothers looking for their children, grandchildren, and nobody answers, because the only way people are starting to find out is through platforms developed by the own citizens. In one of them, there are over 45,000 people reported missing as we speak.
Oh, it's just terrible. I hate to switch topics like this, but it's also equally very important topic. When is Venezuela going to have its election? You're the opposition leader, and Maduro's out. He's been taken out of Venezuela. Is there a date for an election?
There isn't a date yet, and I think every day that goes by, it makes it even more and more urgent. Venezuela is today a country that is in mourning, but it's also desperate to cure our wounds and to be able to rebuild strong institutions that will last for centuries. We want our children that are scattered around the world to come back to a country that we need to build together. And the only way you can have a stabilized process is through legitimate, elected officials in which the whole society has the right to vote, those that are in Venezuela, those that are abroad. A moment like this, I just want to say, bring us together, more together than ever. And I want to thank everybody around the world to put their hearts, minds, and help today in my country that desperately needs it.
And it must be enormously frustrating, since you did win that race, so much as that to be sitting out here in the United States wanting to help so much at a very tough time. But anyway, thank you very much. And I hope, and I know the United States is going to help as much as it can.
I know that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Coming up, the story that never goes away, pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Oversight Chairman James Comer joins me next when The Record continues.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmitt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
Before you agree, you should understand how dangerous this is.
What's the mission?
You're hunting a predator. It's the kill shot. It comes for you.
I wouldn't miss it for anything. Whatever it takes, understand?
Spring. Things out here have gotten a little too comfortable. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn. Until the hedges duck for cover. Then run it again. Right now, save $30 on select trimmers. Steel.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring. Understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
Well, you've seen him on reality television, Todd Chrisley. He starred in Chrisley Knows Best, and now he is breaking his silence on going to prison. But there's more. The federal judge who presided over his trial in Georgia and sent him to prison, Judge Eleanor Ross, is now making her own headlines, and her headlines are not good. They're both steamy and deceitful. It's been reported that Judge Ross had sex with a police officer in her chambers in the middle of the day. The sex was so wild, even her law clerks could hear it from another room. But it gets worse. When Judge Ross was questioned by the federal appeals court about sex in her chambers, she lied. Her lying caught Todd Chrisley's attention big time.
Eleanor Ross was so unprofessional and for the lack of a extended vocabulary, I will just say what is on my mind. You know, just because you're a judge doesn't always mean that you have the credentials to be a judge.
Oh, yeah.
And this woman, her educational level and comprehending a high dollar case, she had none.
Ted's even more than, it's more than having the experience or whatever, and you've really got to know people and understand. I mean, it's just, there's so much more to judging than having, you know, high LSAT scores or passing the bar.
Well, you know, it's so bad there in Fulton County in that federal court system and in the court system as a whole in Fulton County that they try not to give her complex cases because she doesn't understand them.
Yeah.
And in something that has high dollar amounts, they have an attorney assigned to her within the federal building that goes through the case and basically does her job for her, and then she just rubber stamps it.
Professor Emeritus at Harvard University, Alan Dershowitz joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And the thing that really bothers me about this judge is, I know that the stuff in the chambers was bad, but she lied about it when she was asked by the Court of Appeals, yet she expects people to come before her in court and tell the truth. Your thoughts?
Look, this is a test case for what the criteria are for impeaching a judge. I have always argued that the criteria for impeaching a judge is not the same as that for impeaching a president or a member of the executive branch. They can be impeached only for treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors. But judges serve only, quote, during good behavior. That obviously is the criteria for removal. If a judge engages in bad behavior, can anybody imagine anything worse behavior than having loud sex in the courthouse in front of your law clerks? My God, of course she should be impeached. And if I were a member of Congress, I would move for the impeachment on the ground of bad behavior and test that and see if, in fact, there is a basis for removing a federal judge without satisfying the normal criteria of treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors.
I'll take you one step further. The United States Court of Appeals investigated the judge on one of the judges on that bench. They knew she lied to them. They caught her in a lie, and then they kept it sort of secret. I mean, they should have disciplined her in some way, removed her from the bench, suspend her from the bench. They must have something. And even I'll even go further. The United States Supreme Court judge, the Chief Justice. I mean, are they all just looking the other way? It's, you know, like keeping it a big secret when judges go wild and misbehave and shouldn't, and they're liars themselves.
Well, look, I still to this day believe that some of the justices of the Supreme Court know who leaked the memorandum about Roe versus Wade, and they don't want an investigation because they don't want to they can't handle the truth. They don't want the truth. And so I think we have a judiciary that is self-serving often and self-defending often. I once had a case, I argued an appeal, an ordinary case in the Second Circuit. Halfway through my argument, the judge kept asking me these ridiculous, irrelevant questions. And then it turned out he had read the wrong brief in the wrong cases. And he had the wrong briefs in front of him. And he was asking me about another case. The guy was 90 years old. He was clearly beyond his capacity to serve as a judge. And the other judges were hinting to him to get off the bench and to take senior status. But judges don't ever tell other judges what to do, or rarely tell other judges what to do. But this case is such a clear case for impeachment on the ground of bad behavior. I hope they go forward. I hope they test the case. And I would certainly be willing to help anybody who tries to get him impeached with the constitutional argument.
Well, I think you probably get Todd to help you. He's pretty hot on it. But here's what I don't get: is that everybody who's in her courtroom is asked to take an oath to tell the truth, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But she gets a pass on the truth. You know, that's what I don't get. You know, I mean, what do you tell the American people who appear in her courtroom that it's just the truth is just for the others, not for her?
Sure. And let's remember, too, the district attorney of Fulton County was caught in a clear lie and perjury. And as far as I know, she still maintains her office. She's never been prosecuted. You know, she swore about a sex affair with the assistant prosecutor, but she was caught lying clearly. And, you know, I do think perjury laws are applied very selectively, and that's a very serious problem in the law. The law of perjury ought to be applied equally to all.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir. And I think Todd will probably contact you because he probably would love to have you help him. Thank you, sir.
Happy to help out. Good.
Thank you. 2 weeks later, and we have the transcript. On June 10th, billionaire Bill Gates answered questions behind closed doors and before the House Oversight Committee. The questions were about his relationship with disgraced financier and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. This question was part of the committee's review of the federal investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, fast forward to now. The House Oversight Committee has released the transcript of what Gates said. Kentucky Congressman and Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And are you satisfied with the answers you got from Bill Gates?
Yeah, I think he answered every question that we asked. We're going back, we're speaking with Epstein survivors to see if anyone disputes what he said. But, you know, if you read the transcript, he named the names of the women that he reportedly had an affair with. They were not part of Epstein's victims. They weren't in Epstein's circle. The email that talked about it, Bill Gates and a possible sexually transmitted disease, that was an email sent by Epstein to Epstein, which is very odd. And Bill Gates said, and I know it's been widely reported, that he felt like that Epstein was trying to blackmail him. And let me say this, Greta, he said the same thing the Clintons said, that they were introduced to Epstein thinking that he was going to be someone that was going to donate to their charity. And the Clintons, it was the Clinton Foundation, and with Bill Gates, it was his philanthropy in Africa. So that's what they said. If evidence emerges that they lied, then we'll hold them accountable.
All right, well, your investigation is an oversight of the Justice Department to see how this was investigated, the underlying cases against Maxwell and Epstein, if I'm correct. So if that's your investigation, when do you start calling the federal prosecutors who had those files sitting in their office and looked the other way for the last, I don't know, 20 years?
Well, we've already brought in for deposition Alex Acosta. If you'll remember, he was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida that was responsible with what I think most of us would agree was a sweetheart plea deal by Epstein in the 2009, 2010 timeframe. We've learned from our investigation that Epstein was released on a work release program, and he continued to abuse girls and communicate with girls while on work release. So that's a problem. That's going to be detailed. We've brought prison guards in that we felt like.
How about the federal prosecutors out of New York? Wasn't this case in the Southern District of New York too?
Yeah.
And it sat there.
Yeah, and the lead prosecutor, if my memory is correct, was James Comey's daughter. So that's something that we're considering bringing in once we've brought in all the other people. But look, the government failed. There's no question about it. I think one thing that's important, we've brought in people like Bill Gates. We're bringing in Leon Black tomorrow, rich, powerful people. We've deposed Lex Wexner, trying to determine, were you let off the hook because of the government, because you're a big, rich person, or things like that. So the last people that we'll bring in for depositions will probably be people in the government, the prosecutors that failed the victims.
Chairman James Comer, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Coming Coming up, this is rotten. Scammers using dead patients' names to get money. I'll talk about this outrageous fraud with Dr. Mehmet Oz. He leads Medicare and Medicaid, and he joins me next when the record continues.
Tonight's Newsmax lineup is brought to you by Crown Atlantic. Protect what matters most with fast, affordable life insurance. Visit lifeforless.com.
At Omaha Steaks, we do burgers differently. We take a premium aged steak like this and turn it into a pure ground burger like this. So this is actually a ribeye. This is a New York strip, top sirloin, beef brisket, and this is a filet mignon. For a limited time, our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99. Get it today at omahasteaks.com/TV. This is Burger Perfection, guaranteed.
It's me, Ricky. You know me. You grew up with me. I'm 56 and a half years of age. I am using this right here, Fatty 15, to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient in Fatty 15 has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. And it is a game changer for your overall vitality. I urge you to try Fatty 15. Give your cells what they need and give yourself a chance with more time.
There's a reason the wealthy don't keep all their money in one place. We work hard our entire lives to build wealth for retirement. If your retirement dropped 30% tomorrow, would you be ready? Or would you just have to wait and hope it comes back? The last thing any of us wants is to watch our retirement accounts shrink every time Wall Street panics, the dollar drops, or global uncertainty rises. That's why so many successful Americans turn to gold to help protect their retirement. And Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend. Let me be frank, gold is not for everybody, and I do not give financial advice, but I do urge you to get my free wealth protection guide from Preserve Gold and learn about a special offer to receive up to $20,000 in free gold and silver. Education is power.
Text Newsmax to 50505.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking LipoBalance support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER, and everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
Well, this is vile, a hospice scam involving billing dead patients. This week, the feds busted a multi-million-dollar scheme in California, but it's not just California. The Trump administration has been targeting healthcare fraud across the nation. How much fraud? Well, you better sit down. More than $6.5 billion of fraud. 455 people have now been charged. The administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and a cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Mehmet Oz, joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you. But just those numbers, to put it on perspective, that's for 2 weeks. The 2-week effort, an all-government effort, again, by the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force, the number of $6.5 billion is for 2 weeks of arrests. We did, however, successfully bring people back from other countries. Kash Patel helped pull that off. Todd Blanche and the wonderful team at DOJ actually brought down these charges on folks all across the country. That footage from Los Angeles, from Billy Saley, who's the U.S. attorney there. So everybody got involved.
Okay, this is so insane. I mean, the level of fraud. Ripping off taxpayers. It's unthinkable. I mean, I don't know what these prosecutors are doing every day. I mean, I guess they're on the Epstein files. I don't know, but they ought to be doing this.
Well, COVID changed the entire equation. COVID taught a lot of gangsters and fraudsters that they could take advantage of the U.S. government, and we probably wouldn't do anything about it. And in the prior administration, we didn't. My agency, CMS, we have about almost $2 trillion going out of our doors. Health fraud is the #1 volume fraud in America because there's so much money traveling through the hands of people who can then cheat, lie, steal. But the big message, Greta, is if they're willing to steal your money, they're willing to steal your health, they'll take your life. And there's a case that I presented when I was at the press conference earlier this week of a young man, an athlete, and his mom had been tricked into participating in this con game where they would just test a boy and tell her that he was okay, he wouldn't have a heart problem. It turns out these guys never really looked at his images from what we can tell. And allegedly, there's the image. That young man that your picture you're seeing right there, he died within a month of a test that would have told you that he was going to be in danger. I looked at with the mom, I called her. The autopsy result, his heart was 2.5 times normal. There's no way you could miss that. And yet this child was tricked.
I don't get this because, you know, like one of the guys you talked about had a $500,000 Rolls Royce, and I did criminal defense. You saved lives. I don't know what I did, but I represented the bad people, and I would tell them, you know, don't go out and get luxury cars because there's, you know, if you've got a job and all of a sudden you're driving luxury cars, it's a dead tip-off that you're probably stealing.
That was a nurse. She made $1 million a patient. $1 million a patient selling what are called skin substitutes. These are the size of my thumbnail, pieces of skin that used appropriately could be helpful, but $1 million a patient? And she ran up massive amounts of invoices. She has a Bulgari necklace, really wonderful, but not for us, not the American people. And that's the kind of fraud that angers the president. It's why he created the anti-fraud task force, why Vice President Pence gets animated by these issues. Colin McDonald, who runs the Department of Justice element that's focused on fraud. All these folks, Andrew Ferguson, they've all gotten together, every part of government possible, and said, no more. No mas. We're not going to tolerate this. The American people don't want it anymore, but I'm particularly focused on this issue because I know they're stealing your health. They're stealing your beneficiary number. They're lying about benefits that they claim you're getting that you're not. When you actually need the help, that's not there for you. Look at hospice care. Hospice is a beautiful program when done right. 1/3 of all hospice in the entire country is in Los Angeles. In one city, not California, LA. That's impossible. You have to literally be looking the other way on purpose, ignoring the reality. And when you sign someone up wrongly for hospice, you take their insurance away in order to get those benefits. People die because of that.
Are we going to run another topic? Are we going to run out of money in Medicare and Medicaid?
No, you know why?
Why?
Because we're going to be, just by taking out the fraud, in Medicare, we will double the life expectancy of the Medicare Trust Fund. And President Trump and Congress saved Medicaid with the bill last year, the Working Families Tax Cut legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill, that saved Medicaid. It took out all this wasteful money that was being thrown at states, bribing them to do things, and now we've got a system, finally, that is solvent. Both Medicaid and Medicare are going to be in good shape.
You know, as I listen to it, I think this is 2026. I mean, this has been going on forever, and nobody's done anything about it. I mean, this didn't just start last week. You know?
Because you have a lot of lobbyists, powerful individuals, powerful companies that are not always interested in this because they create a little friction in the system and they tax the system, take a little bit for the effort. And the president said, we're not going to tolerate that. We're going to go at these businesses, but we're also going to go at the fraudsters, often multinational criminal organizations with foreign countries involved, and we're going to go after them straight on without hesitation.
I hope you go after those ads. They take you through 20 minutes of ads. They say, you know, this will save your life. And you go through 20 ads. You have to buy something. And they keep sending it to you. I mean, there's so much out there. Anyway, Dr. Oz, always nice to see you, sir.
Blessings.
Speaking of fraud, Minnesota has been the epicenter of fraud.
Waltz is a dirty, crooked politician. The Attorney General is a crooked guy. They say $19 billion, think of it, is missing. $19 billion. You know, if we would solve half of the fraud problem, Pam, in this country, we would have more than a balanced budget. We'd have a surplus.
Today, the temporary commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Services testified before the House Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations on Fraud.
The level of fraud that has been unearthed in Minnesota's Medicaid program is alarming. In what ways is the Department of Human Services revising the state's previous Medicaid provider enrollment process for new providers in the 14 high-risk programs to improve provider screening going forward?
We have designated 14
services as high risk, 13 remaining, and part of that involves provider enrollment and compliance action that is escalated. So there's an unannounced site visit that could occur, that does occur rather, in addition to a fingerprint background check and more frequent revalidations. And all of those providers have been revalidated within the past 5 months.
Republican U.S. Senate candidate from the state of Minnesota, former NFL sideline reporter Michele Tafoya is back. Michele, I just don't get it. I mean, Minnesota seems to be the epicenter. So Dr. Oz just made it. You got some competition in L.A. with the hospice care, I guess. I mean, it's pretty bad. But I mean, how does this go on day after day after day? I mean, I suppose every state has got it, but we got the spotlight on your state where you're running. So how does this happen?
You know, I think when you have programs so big and no one's really minding them, and in fact, maybe some in government are enabling them, this stuff continues and it goes on. I am thrilled to see some comeuppance for the people who have perpetrated this fraud. But what I'd like to see, and I know what Minnesotans want to see, and I'm sure they do in California as well, are some people held accountable who are actually overseeing this from the government perspective. We have federal tax dollars.
I don't think anybody was. Who's been overseeing it?
No one here has been. No one here has been, Greta. We have not had anyone held accountable, and people are really angry about that. You know, yes, is it good to see people put behind bars for committing these crimes? Absolutely. But when you have so many whistleblowers coming forward who said, I alerted people to this, I let people know, they shamed me, or they called me derogatory names, or they threatened me, or they demoted me, and this is happening within the state government, this can't happen. But it has, and some people have not been held accountable. So you have to be able to be willing and have the will to say, we've got to look inside where the problem originated and make sure this doesn't happen again. Heck, Greta, you and I know, if you get a fraud alert about your credit card, you know, they immediately put a stop on your credit card and they don't let you use it because there's fraud detected. If they can do that in a bank, why can't we do that in the United States of America, in the government and in the state governments?
Well, you raised the thing about the oversight. I think that's an important issue because I'm sure there are a lot of good people in Minnesota state government who had oversight responsibility. I'm sure it goes up a chain. But the problem is they can't do the job. They didn't do the job. And it's like they shouldn't be doing the job. And so even if they may be nice people and people like them, is that they need to find other jobs. That's just it. You know, they have failed you.
There are, yes, when you use the word job, there are usually responsibilities that come along with a job. And I don't care how likable you are. If you can't do the job, you can't do the job. So, yeah, I think that Minnesotans really want to see this, all of the investigations go forward, you know, as deeply and as far as they need to go to make sure this doesn't happen again and to make sure that the people who allowed this are held accountable.
Any ideas, a wild guess, how long this has been going on at this huge magnitude? I mean, there's a little fraud built into everything, but how long has it been this giant?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I saw a man who testified in St. Paul in our capital about the fact that he was a millionaire. His assets made him a millionaire. And as a little test, he decided to see if he could qualify for SNAP benefits. And this was back in about 2017, 2018. And he did qualify for SNAP benefits. And then he took the money that he got, a total of about $6,000, which is small. But if you put that to scale and you pull that out over how many people might be defrauding SNAP, then you realize it's a lot of money. And he did this as an exercise to prove that he could be a millionaire and still qualify for SNAP. So I'm sure that this has been going on for a long time. And it's going to be tough to go back and see exactly how much has been wasted, not just of Minnesotans' money, but of federal taxpayer money.
Indeed. And as I said, California first, now you. I'm sure that these other states are getting a little nervous as the spotlight moves around the country.
As they should be, and I hope they are. I hope they are.
Michele Tafoya, thank you.
Good to see you.
Coming up, is it too hard and too expensive for millions of Americans to watch NFL games from their own homes? And is this because the NFL is getting a special deal from Congress that hurts you? Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan wants answers. He joins me next when the record continues.
He was the Duke, on screen, bigger than life, with millions of devoted fans around the world. a man of strength and courage. His first love was always his country. Watch American Hero, the John Wayne story.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at GetTrumpWatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
I'm seeing more and more people in their 40s and even in their 30s starting to prioritize their cholesterol health. They're doing what they can with diet and exercise, but want something more. Human Cholesterol Health Daily is that something more. A multi-action formula with plant-based ingredients backed by 3 clinical studies that demonstrate real, measurable support for cholesterol and vascular health. Founded in partnership with the University of Texas, this is modern-day cholesterol support I wish more people knew about. Only human.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
Waking up in the hospital from all that stuff, there's got to be some kind of purpose for me here. I need to get over myself and start helping others. Total Towers came in and gave me and my family a home. I've regained quite a bit of independence from that amazing gift they've given me. I can't begin to thank Total Towers for everything they've done for our family. It means so much to us, a life-changing gift. Thank you. Please donate $11 a month at T2T.org.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone, building on my progress without starting over. Weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about newer sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
A Green Bay Packers fan who lives in Dallas, Texas. Grew up in Green Bay, loves the Packers, wants to watch the Packers. Grew up in Dallas, Texas. For the 2026 season, the Packers are scheduled to play 8 games on Fox, 2 games on Amazon Prime Video, 2 games on Netflix, 2 games on NBC, 1 game on ESPN, 1 game on CBS, and 1 unscheduled game that is left to be determined by the NFL. The fan will need access to Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, NBC, and ESPN to see the 7 games scheduled for those services. For the 9 games scheduled for Fox and CBS, the fan will likely need Fox and CBS because some of the games will be on broadcast television in Dallas. The fan will also likely need Sunday Ticket just to watch some subset of the 9 Fox CBS games because the fan will not know which games will and will not be on broadcast until the NFL and relevant networks release the broadcast maps the week of the games.
Is your head spinning yet? That congressional hearing on the Sports Broadcasting Act was before the House Judiciary Committee. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, who according to Celebrity Net Worth makes $65 million each year, declined to testify. So where does this leave the consumer for this upcoming football season? Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And
good to be
it's
with you,
this exemption It's this exemption, antitrust exemption, that
Yeah.
allows them to, you need a PhD in math from MIT to find the game, and then you need to have a trust fund or marry a billionaire to pay for it. So what's up? What are you going to do?
Well, you're right, and they have antitrust relief, and they have it from 1961, the Sports Broadcasting Act, because the argument was, and it's a valid argument, the argument was, oh, if you negotiate individually in the marketplace, New York, Chicago, LA are going to get better deals, and it'd be tough on Cleveland, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh, who are also part of the NFL. It'd be tough on them to actually garner the revenue, have the kind of team you need to have competition and parity, and have the league. And so they came to Congress and they got the exemption from the antitrust law. Okay, fine. And what happened in 1961 is it was given for broadcasting, which is frankly just about all we had then. But today there's streaming, there's cable, there's satellite. It's a whole different universe. And the question is, do we need to relook at this? And when you think about the complexity as was described in what we said in the committee, and the cost, it probably costs $1,000 a year if you do not live in the market of your team and you want to watch your team that you grew up watching. It gets real difficult.
Well, this is something special that the taxpayers have given the NFL over the years through Congress. It's something special and good for them because we like football. It's a national sport.
Sure.
However, it's like, and I know it's mind-boggling to me that Roger Goodell, who doesn't even put his life at risk on the field, gets $65 million a year. So I'm not so sure why they need all this special stuff. I haven't seen anybody starving in the football industry, but I see American people who give them this special exemption, taking it on the chin.
Yeah. We give them the ability to form a cartel and negotiate as a cartel. We did so back in '61 because that made sense when there was 3 networks covering, sports and television. It's a little different situation today. To add to what you just described, in '61, in constant dollars, inflation-adjusted dollars, each of the 14 teams in the NFL at that time got like $4 million. Today, each of the 32 teams gets $432 million. So they went from $4 million to $432 million to 32 teams. $500 million. That's how big these contracts are. And all we're saying is let's remember the fan and see if there's some things we need to adjust here, and we'll continue to do our work.
Why didn't Roger Goodell want to show up and talk to you and explain why he thinks it's still a good idea to have this special deal for the NFL?
Great question. They're in the middle of litigation. And remember, the jury actually sided with the fans and said the NFL owes the class a lot of money. And then that was overturned on some kind of technical, the experts used in the case weren't appropriate, that the judge overturned that. So they're in litigation, and that's the main reason I think he didn't want to come, is they're in the middle of litigation. But we'll see. We'll see where we go from here.
All right.
And then the other issue is they've made a change now that's going to make it, I think, difficult on the tavern owners, the restaurant owners, and how they offer the package in their bars and restaurants, which fans, enjoy going to the restaurant and watching their team on sports there.
All right, we have 30 seconds left. This is random. What do you think about the Chicago Bears if they move to Indiana?
George Halas, what's George Halas going to say? I mean, George Halas
He'd be so upset.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense. What are we going to call them, the Indiana Bears or the Chicago Bears? So it just doesn't make sense. But, I'll leave that to Pritzker and all the folks in Chicago.
Yeah, well, I don't like to admit this publicly, but with all we Packer fans hate the Bears, but George Halas, who owned the Bears, saved the Packers when they were in big money trouble.
You're the fan I described. You're the Packer fan now. You're in D.C., not in Dallas, but you're the fan I described. That could have been Greta Van Susteren. I should have put that in there. I should have read Greta Van Susteren wants to watch the Packers.
There you go. And she doesn't have that PhD in mathematics from MIT, so she can find the games.
But she's a good
nice
lawyer. She's a good lawyer and good on hosting her show. So anyway, thanks, Greta. Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Nice to see you. Coming up, did President Trump provoke a flip-flop in the U.S. Senate? That one, the record continues.
Look what I just found. No ding decline on the Experian app. They show me credit cards that won't hurt my credit if I'm not approved. Turns out I care about my credit health too. Get the app from your big financial friend. Experian.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, and other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Average price for a gallon of gas? $4.43.
That's extortion.
Price for Paramount Plus? 99 cents per month for the first 2 months.
That sounds like a good deal.
You ready?
I love it.
Lots of other prices may be crazy, but ours is not. It's my home. The Paramount Plus Summer Sale. Just 99 cents per month for the first 2 months.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
What if losing a pair of sunglasses was actually fine? That's why we built Shady Rays. Every pair of Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection, but no matter what happens, whether you drop them in the lake, a wave gets them, they're covered with lost and broken protection.
There are sparks and insults. Yes, just another day on Capitol Hill. Here's what happened when Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen testified.
3,900 children were separated from their families.
450,000 kids were lost during the Biden administration.
Secretary,
You didn't say a word
Mr.
about
Secretary, do not interrupt.
Don't you point your finger at me. Don't
I
be a
will
hypocrite.
point my finger
Don't you be
at
a hypocrite
you.
then. Then you be as you should be as upset about the 450,000 kids that were lost. You didn't say a word about it. For 4 years, you never said a word.
Secretary Mullen was talking to Connecticut Democrat Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. And Republicans just made a U-turn. Earlier this week, the Senate voted to curb Trump's war powers against Iran. But then yesterday, Senate Republicans had a lunch with President Trump. And hours after that lunch, Senate Republicans reversed and rejected the war powers resolution. Something must have happened at that lunch for some senators. In any event, the resolution is symbolic, meaning it does not bind the president, nor does it make him do anything or not do anything. Meanwhile, there have been some questions about President Trump's memorandum of understanding with Iran, including whether the United States can trust the Iranian regime. Here's what Secretary of State Marco Rubio says.
The president has multiple options at his disposal if Iran goes back on their word or if Iran decides they don't want to make a deal. Let's hope that's not the case. We don't want that to be the case. We're going to give diplomacy every chance to work. We've got a good team working on it. And so if it doesn't work out, the president knows what his options are.
Georgia Republican and member of the Armed Services Committee, Congressman Rich McCormick, and a doctor, I should add, joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Great to see you, too.
Where are you on this memorandum of understanding with Iran? What do you think?
Not a big fan. Just as a guy who spent several tours in that area of the world, knows that area and those people very well. First of all, they don't see us as good actors. They see us as the great Satan. They want to destroy us. They've told us this openly. They planned for that openly. They know they can lie to us. As a matter of fact, we're infidels. They're supposed to lie to us. They've never showed in good faith they want to get rid of their nuclear arms capability or anything they're building towards that. They've openly said since the war, since even the MOU, now they're going to re-pursue their ballistic missile systems. They're going to rebuild everything we destroyed, which was their military. This is not a good faith agreement by any sorts.
I don't understand this, and I've mentioned it almost every night. I sound like a broken record here, but the IAEA is being brought into this like they were in the other inspections. And the IAEA was created in 1957, and it was supposed to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Well, that didn't work out. They failed there. Well, then they're supposed to do inspections for nuclear weapons in Iran, Iraq, and they failed in Iran. Iran tricked them. So now we think suddenly they're going to be competent at their job and they're going to successfully do these inspections and tell us whether their nuclear weapons program or not. I don't get it. Why would we rely on them?
History doesn't repeat itself, but it sure rhymes. This reminds me a lot of what happened in Iraq when they agreed to something and then they reneged on it multiple times. It cost Saddam Hussein his life and his regime. And they didn't even have nuclear arms, by the way. He pretended like he did because he thought that would make him powerful. It obviously
thought he'd scare off Iran because Iran had been giving him a hard time in the 80s.
Exactly, and you saw what happened there. 17 times he was warned by the United Nations as well as ourselves, and eventually we didn't trust him. Imagine this regime, which is far more powerful, far more alarmingly armed. We obviously can't let them have nuclear arms, but I don't know why we called it off.
So what would you do? You've got a military background. You've been there. What would you do?
This is going to sound harsh, but I believe in the unconditional surrender, which means regime change. That's not achieved easily, but in order to save 1 million lives in Japan, we dropped bombs that killed 100,000 civilians in one night. Then we dropped 2 nuclear bombs on them. Am I saying that what should we do in Iran? No. But I can take out your entire infrastructure of energy production in less than 2 weeks. All 13 of your major storage facilities, all your pumps, and then I start on your electrical grid. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do so you can get your civilians out of that area. It's up to you. But I guarantee you, if you want me to cripple your nation for good, I'll do that. You can't launch anything against me if you have no electrical grid. I won't allow you. I want that regime gone. The same regime that said they're going to rain down fire from above.
Is that what's going to happen, though? Because you and I both expect Iran's going to lie. I mean, or we're going to pretend they didn't lie or something, and with the inspection. But is that what happens next?
This is a regime that has promised to kill us and has attacked us 40 times through Hezbollah and Hamas and Houthis, killed 1,000 American lives. You think they're always going to act in good faith? Of course not.
Well, Israel certainly doesn't. Netanyahu certainly doesn't think they're going to.
No, and they won't. They've proven that time and time again. What's going to change anything? Do you think they're now more friendly now that we bomb them? Of course not. We need to finish this and finish in good order.
Can we take over the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, absolutely.
So why don't we take it over?
Well, we have the capability. The question is the onesie twosies, the ability to have no risk. You're never going to have no risk. They've shown that clearly. They can put a machine gun on top of a speedboat and call it a threat. They can get onesie twosie type any sort of weaponry out there as mines and stuff like that we can't control. So the question is, what risk are you willing to take to get through the straits? Can you say there's going to be no risk? No, but we can pretty much mitigate most of it.
Congressman Rich McCormick, thank you. Nice to see you, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Senator Ted Cruz lost big time. He paid the price. New York Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz bet on the NBA championship. Her team, the Knicks, beat his team, the Spurs. So Cruz had to wear a Knicks jersey and treat Gillibrand's staff to Texas barbecue. Coming up, it does not matter how famous you are. Rules are rules. One celebrity found out the hard way. That when the record continues.
Our founding fathers believed in God and trusted in Him to free our new nation. George Washington escaped death and capture many times. Was it divine intervention? Watch God and America's 250th on Newsmax.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
We've been building chainsaws for over 100 years. Now that century of cutting comes in a mower. New blade, same bloodline. Right now, save $50 on select mowers. Steel.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist-recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care. Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing. And now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Billy, I need help with the clicker.
Yeah, wait 1 second, Grandma. This guy's gonna buy my car.
Billy, you still there?
Okay, just...
You need Carvana. What's your plate number?
Boss, M-O-V.
Vehicle features. No accidents, right?
No.
Good. Generating offer. Carvana can pick it up tomorrow.
That's an amazing offer. But do you still need help with the clicker?
I'll ask your sister.
Sell your car the easy way with Carvana.
There's a reason the wealthy don't keep all their money in one place. We work hard our entire lives to build wealth for retirement. If your retirement dropped 30% tomorrow, would you be ready? Or would you just have to wait and hope it comes back? The last thing any of us wants is to watch our retirement accounts shrink every time Wall Street panics, the dollar drops, or global uncertainty rises. That's why so many successful Americans turn to gold to help protect their retirement. And Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend. Let me be frank, gold is not for everybody. And I do not give financial advice, but I do urge you to get my free wealth protection guide from Preserve Gold and learn about a special offer to receive up to $20,000 in free gold and silver. Education is power.
Text Newsmax to 50505.
One celebrity was shut out from attending a World Cup game in Mexico. Who was it? Merlin the duck. Merlin has become a very popular person on social media. He's been waddling the streets of Mexico City. He wears a Mexican soccer jersey, and he wears special socks. Yesterday, before Mexico's soccer game, Merlin filmed an interview with a Mexican TV station on stadium grounds. Once the interview ended, Merlin tried to get into the stadium, but Merlin was turned away. Turns out FIFA bans all animals from stadiums during games. Well, that's not all that happened to Merlin this week. Merlin also met with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. Merlin waddled into the briefing room. Merlin didn't take any questions, but his owner, who is a street vendor, did speak. After the press briefing, President Sheinbaum went to pet Merlin, but he tried to bite her. The fast-moving president did not seem offended and laughed it off. Ducks, of course, will be ducks. And don't forget, I have a new podcast called Greta Wire. You'll like it. It's different. It's free. You can subscribe right now in your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at newsmax.com/listen. And in about 30 seconds, a new one gets posted. So go watch Greta Wire. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.